Hello everyone, my name is Luis and thank you for watching. Today we're going to be looking at some of the Overwatch League off-season moves. There's been a little bit of activity lately. There's been some high value players that have switched teams either because they were released or traded. So I figure why not make a quick video about it. To start things off, just today, actually, early this morning, Smurf, the ex main tank for the San Francisco Shock, has signed with the Seoul Dynasty. This is a very, very good move. This gives Dynasty an experienced, proven player in Smurf. One of the interesting things here is so far the Dynasty have Fitz, they have Prophet and Stalker as their DPS line, Creative as their flex support, and Smurf as the main tank. So far, this team is looking very, very good. I really like the pickup. What can be said about Smurf? Smurf has been known for his excellent Winston. He plays the Orisa in the San Francisco Shock. He was usually cycling or changing roles, not roles, but trading playing time with Super. Super usually will come in for the Reinhardt and a little bit of the Winston, and Smurf will be the hard Winston, hard Orisa, and sometimes ball player for the San Francisco Shock. This is an excellent pickup for the Seoul Dynasty. I am glad that Smurf has found a home. He's one of my favorite players in the league. Moving on, Moby Dick, he has has returned back to the Toronto Defiant. Moby Dick is known for his strategic knowledge, and he used to be one of the coaches for the Philadelphia Fusion. Philadelphia Fusion is going through a little bit of an internal restructuring, so they have opted to change some of the coaching stuff. So Moby Dick has found himself out of a job and he's returning to the Toronto Defiant, which he was a coach back in 2019, I believe. I may be wrong about that. And let's see here. Yes, 2019. He had a brief stint at the Toronto Defiant from July to October. And before that, he was also a coach at O2 Blast, a very well-known organization. Following through the list, Chio, the main support for O2 Blast. O2 Blast is a team in Korean contenders. It's a team that's won contenders back-to-back. The main support for the O2 Blast, Chio, has joined the Dallas Fuel. Good to see Chio in the Overwatch League. And hopefully he performs as expected. He's a little bit of an aggressive main support. I think that following through with the new ideas that main supports need to play aggressive, Chio is one of those players. So good to see Chio find a home in the Overwatch League. The Fuel, if you guys don't know about this, they let go of Jaxe. Jaxe was their previous main support. So as it stands right now, the Fuel have at the core of Fearless, Hambin, Sparkle, Doha, Chio, and Builder. So now they have a 6-player roster. In theory, they are pretty much ready for Overwatch League season 22 or 2022, not season 22. Following through some of these changes, Dongmin, one of the older coaches for the Atlanta Reign, was let go. In my favorite team, the Washington Justice, let go of Jerry. Now, Jerry last year, he didn't have a good year. What was expected of him was a lot more. Unfortunately, in a year where hitscan meta was never a thing, he found himself out of minutes, out of playing time. So he could never quite display what he was capable of. He was let go, unfortunately. In a post by the Washington Justice says, "Today we thank you, Jerry. Just kept the team in good spirits with his great personality and continuously impressed us with his strong abilities that we regret not being able to see more of. What we're talking about. We wish you success in the future. Now, Jerry is an interesting player. I really think that he has what it takes to be in the Overwatch League, but he needs the minutes. He's a young player, hard hit scan type of player, so he needs to be a starter. Hopefully, he finds a home in another team. Following through, we're going to skip the contenders moves. The Washington Justice replaced Jerry with Happy. Happy, an ex-scan player for the Charge, and then the Outlaws, is now in the Washington Justice. Justice now have a DPS line of Decay, Assassin, and Happy. That is an excellent DPS line. Happy gives the Washington Justice access to Hanzo, the Tracer backup, a little bit of the Sombra, Ashe. Again, I think what teams expect in the future for the next season is they expect players like Happy, like Decay, to be able to play not just the hard hit scan, but a little bit of everything, because we just don't know what the new game is going to be like. So it is important for players to be adaptable and flexible in that sense. Moving on, probably the most important change so far this season is the move or the trade of Pelican. Pelican, the Rookie of the Year, has moved on from the Atlanta Reign to the Houston Outlaws. This is a very, very interesting move. It tells us about the goals of the organization of the Outlaws to create a team that is pretty much a title contender. What does this mean so far for the Outlaws? They still have Dante, now with Pelican, two hyper flex DPS players in my opinion, with Jake still as a flex player. Both, I believe, still remains as a coach player type of member of the team, and Piggy. Unfortunately, what the Outlaws did, they got rid of Dreamer, Happy, now on the Justice, Crimzo, Juvie, and Django, and previously KFF and Hydration. So, every team right now is trying to rebuild from the ground up in many senses, and what this means is they just don't know what the new game is going to be like. They have an idea of what Overwatch plays like, so they're trying to build around players that are hyper flexible, like we said before. Let's see here. So let's move on. Gumba is the next one. So the Mayhem now have a head coach, and the new head coach is Gumba. Gumba, for those of you who don't know, used to be the coach for the LA Valiant. Then went to the Boston Uprising, then went back to the Valiant. What Gumba brings to the team is he brings obviously experience and an eye for talent. Now, he retired from Overwatch and went to coach in Valorant, and now he returns to Overwatch. So this guy is very flexible in terms of his skills as a coach. That is something that I think that the Florida Mayhem are going to be looking for in the future. We know the game is a new game, like we said before. So it's good to have a coach that has a history of transitioning between games. So we'll see what happens here. Interesting so far. The Mayhem, as of today, the only player that we know of that is still on the team or in the roster is Yaki. So we'll see what happens there. I think Gumba will surprise us with his eye for scouting talent. We'll see what happens there. BQV, the previous hitscan player for the Florida Mayhem, has announced retirement. What can be said about BQV? One of the underrated players in the league. Had a really good season with the Mayhem in 2019. 2020. 2021 was unfortunate. Bad season for the Mayhem. So part of the restructuring, they let go of a bunch of players, and BQV announced his retirement. Adba, the off tank for the Philadelphia Fusion, doesn't have a team anymore. So Hotba's an interesting case. He looked somewhat weak in the New York Excelsior in 2020. 2021, with the visa problems that the Fusion had, picked up Hotba, and he looked decent. I think that the 2021 season was probably his best season yet. So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be surprised if Hotba landed in a team in the near future. I think he has experience, so we'll see what happens. Moth. Now, this was the star pickup for the Gladiators, and he doesn't have a team right now. So, not sure what's going to happen there. I think Moth is an excellent player, great ult tracking, great track record, great teammate for what we keep hearing from his coaches and teammates. So we'll see what happens. I could see Moth landing on the Mayhem or any Western mix roster or Western focus roster. There's still a bunch of teams out there that don't have many signings. Mayhem, Valiant, Vancouver, and some others. Sorry. Let's see. Moving on. Mike Haley and Jihom previously dropped from the Charge and now from the App Academy, which is the academy team for the Charge. They were dropped. Feather. This is a strange one. Before Assassin was signed with the Justice, I looked up Feather like one of the most interesting prospects in Korean contenders, and unfortunately he has announced his retirement, age 19. You know, previously with Talent Sports, had a down, somewhat of a downer of the season with the Excelsior, so he has announced retirement. I wouldn't be surprised that this player, through some way or another, found himself a team. So we'll see what happens. Because I mean, Feather is just so flexible. You kind of need a player like that. New game, new heroes. Feather is going to be an asset for a lot of teams out there that may be looking for flexibility. Okay, Bullseye with the Boston Uprising was dropped. Gabe Bullseye didn't see much playing time last year. When Gabe Bullseye was signed somewhere in the mid-season, Punk still remained the off-tank for the Boston Uprising. Punk will remain the off-tank for the Boston Uprising, so he was dropped. He doesn't have a team right now. Either we'll see him in contenders or in some other form in APAC. Stalker, one of the most promising rookies in Korean contenders, has finally made or been promoted to the Seoul Dynasty. Seoul Dynasty now find themselves with a DPS line of Stalker, Prophets, and Fits. Very flexible line. Stalker is a little bit of a mini Prophet, so he kind of plays everything. Very interesting DPS line. I think it's solid. We'll see what happens. I think he may not get a lot of playing time though. Oh man. All right, moving on. Twilight. This is a great pickup. Toronto Defiant have been making some moves lately. The latest one is they picked up Twilight, one of the most sought after flex supports in the league. Twilight, known for his excellent as a top tier or S tier Ana, is now with the Defiant. The Defiant now have a roster made of 2 players, Hisu and Twilight. So I think they're rebuilding around Hisu. Twilight is now with them. And there was a rumor at some point, I think, that Twilight was going to be, Smurf was going to sign with Toronto Defiant. That never happened. So we'll see what occurs. They still need 4 more players, so they still have room to grow, but time is ticking. Now, moving on to one of the saddest parts in esports. One of the best off-tanks, best overall players in the league, Choyobin, has announced his retirement. 4th player of the San Francisco Shock titles. What more can be said about this player? He has been amazing. We'll be sad to see him go. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure if Choyobin has fulfill his military obligations. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the future. I mean, he has to come back from retirement. Moving on, Chara, the T1 coach. T1 is the academy team for the Philadelphia Fusion. Chara used to be one of the support for the Charge, went to coach at T1, and now may have made the jump or promoted from T1 to the Fusion. Chara's, and we'll see what happens. I don't know much about Chara's coaching style, but T1 has performed relatively well in the Korean contenders scene, considering how O2 Blast and Talon Esports continue to dominate in that area. A couple interesting changes. Masa, the Finnish main support, was dropped from the Atlanta Reign. Another player similar to Moth that has found himself without a job, surprisingly. But I can definitely see him landing at another team. I think this is a good player. Can play the Brig, the Lucio, the BAP when needed. So again, I don't see him not being in the league in the next season. Kuki, ex-head coach for the Mayhem, was dropped, part of the restructuring. 9K, previously with, was it the Fusion? Yes, he was the coach for the Fusion, has returned to the San Francisco Shock. So Shock continued to restructure a little bit of their coaching staff. Krusty still remains at the helm, but 9K is there now. So we got Krusty, Saurus, and 9K. That's a pretty good team. Fusion again, they pretty much dropped everybody that wasn't had visa issues last year. This means it probably will remain in APAC for the next season. Coco, Funny, Astro, and EQO, all three without a team so far. Again, with the Western main supports. I mean, if you had told me 2 years ago that Funny, Astro, Moth, and Masa didn't have a team, I'd be surprised. I mean, these are some of the most high quality S tier players in the league. Outlaws, Happy Dreamer, Crimso that we dropped. Crimso has been hinting lately on the possibility of landing with a new team, but he's been baiting a little bit and trolling, so a little bit careful with that. We won't talk much about him until there's official confirmation that he has signed with a team. So, Dreamer and Happy, or Happy's now with the Justice, Dreamer still without a team. Moving on, the Arraign drop Iris and Edison. The rumor is that Iris has found a home with the Outlaws, now with Pelican. We'll see what happens. Again, not confirmation yet. Edison doesn't have a team. He didn't see a lot of playing time last year, but is still a really good player. Christopher, Chips' brother. Nah, Christopher has actually has a track record of coaching with the Philadelphia Fusion, where he has been a member since 2019. He was a coach in Fusion University, so this guy has a track record. So now is the coach or the head coach for the Spitfire. This is an interesting decision. I really think this is a great call. He knows the environment. It's Western coach. I think that he probably knows the European scene better than anyone. So I think that he may come up with a few surprises. We'll skip the contenders, most of the stuff. Jin, head coach for the T1 Academy team for the Fusion, was promoted to head coach. So now Jin is the head coach for the Philadelphia. Yeah, sure. Legendary Winston, season 1, and has announced his retirement. No longer with Seoul Dynasty. He's one of those players like Shoyu Vint that have been very iconic in the league. First with GC Busan, London Spitfire, and then Seoul Dynasty. I mean, Jasher is just a really good player. We'll probably see him in the league again at some point, I hope. Similar with Savio Olbe, retirement. Seoul, let go of Marble. To you and Anamo. To you is a bit of a surprise. To you, in my opinion, is a little bit underrated. In an environment where off tanks are actually prefer over the main tanks, I think To you wouldn't be surprised if you came back as a backup for Smurf. Pavane, exit the London Spitfire, came out from retirement to join the London Spitfire, or the Spitfire, the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons now still have Moon as head coach, plus Pavane, I believe. Oh, they have 3 assistants. So they got Moon, Kong, Damon, and Pavane. I believe that Damon and Kong are actually looking for Overwatch League jobs, though. Maybe. San Francisco Shock, Smurf, Aunt, Twilight, Tayo, Nero, Glister, and FD God were let go. FD God will probably land somewhere in Western team. Glister, I would be surprised if he doesn't find a team. Nero has been rumored to join the Atlanta Reign, and Hayo probably go back to Contenders. Unfortunately, he hasn't seen much playing time in the Overwatch League. Twilight is now with the Toronto Defiant. Ans, again, our hit scan. If you think that Widowmaker Ash McCree is going to be meta, this is your guy here. There is no better hit scan player than Ans in the league. And Smurf is now with Soul. The Vancouver Titans let go of most of their players, Dalton included. Zenith was let go by the Shock. Jonah is now looking for a new team. The rumor is that he's gonna go to the Soul Dynasty. See what happens. Rascal, I believe, has announced his retirement and now is looking for a job as a coach. Very flexible player. Lei Young was let go. Burring announced his retirement. Another S-tier type of player, very iconic. And that's it for right now. Some of these changes are a little old, but it's an interesting time for the off season. There's still a lot of teams out there without full rosters. I think that a lot of these teams are probably going to be looking to have short rosters in the beginning, maybe 4 or 5 players, and then add as needed. We'll probably see some teams continue to run tryouts probably till beginning of next year. Most of the teams need to have 5 players by January 1st. In March, I believe they need to have 6. So we still have time. The problem is that the top talent will be picked up this year. So if one of the teams does not pick up an S-tier type of player, they'll find themselves in a problematic spot in 2022. Well, that's it for right now. Let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Till next time.